Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Tyler Deal, and he is going to tell us about his amazing near-death experience. So hi, Tyler.
Hi, Peggy. Thank you for having me on and creating this platform for other people to talk about their experiences.
You're welcome. I really enjoy it because I've had two NDEs myself. So it's
Yeah,
just what I'm really interested in hearing about.
awesome. Wonderful.
So you're free to take the floor and take as long as you like and go as much detail as you like. And
Okay,
okay.
wonderful. Thank you. So my experience, my NDE happened in 1997. So that was 25 years ago. I was 20 years old. I was living in Northern California in a little town called Arcata, going to Humboldt State University. I was actually out of state. I grew up in Washington State and came down there for school. Before the accident, I had an accident. I was in a very depressed state within myself. You know, I would say like a lot of 20-year-olds are just trying to figure out, life and how to figure things out. But I don't I couldn't really compare my experience to other people because I was very quiet about being so depressed. And I never sought out any help from anybody. I figured that it was just a stage of my life that I was going through until I felt that it was getting worse and worse. And it was a feeling. It wasn't just something I would think about and then be depressed about it. It was physiological and visceral. So it would come into my body and I would feel this deep, deep sadness. I would feel that I really didn't want to be here on our planet. And I began to actually have kind of a one-way conversation, I would say, with God, with Source, and say that I don't want to be here. And I would say that almost every day as I was feeling these feelings. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I never really thought about hurting myself or suicide. I've heard stories, but it wasn't something that sounded like that's how I wanted to go. So I would just say, I'm ready to go. I don't want to be here. I'm not happy if I can't be here anymore. And I remember one day in particular, I was biking through town and I felt like I had it and I didn't want to go any further. So I kind of screamed out. I looked up and I screamed out and say, please take me. I can't stand this. I don't want to be here. Please take me. I'm not happy. So from that space, I would say it was a few days later, maybe 4 days later or so, I went biking in the redwood forest, and it was something that I had done quite regularly. I always felt very connected to nature, and I felt like the woods in particular, these redwood trees, they felt like family. They felt like incredible beings to me that were there to support me and help me. So that's where I went when I would feel this way. So I went into the redwood forest on this particular day. It was really no different than the other times. I knew the trails, I knew the jumps, and it was morning time. I would say maybe 9 or so in the morning, and the fog was just clearing and the sun was coming out. So when I had kind of finished my little excursion through the woods, I would take one trail that would take me kind of back to town. And it was a downhill trail and it had several jumps going down the hill. And so I knew the trails. I was familiar with the jumps. So on this day that I had, I was returning home and I hit one of the jumps, but I had realized that as soon as I hit the jump, I would say, I had been on that, I took that jump maybe 2 days prior, but as soon as I hit the jump, I noticed that somebody had really built it up. I mean, it was practically vertical, going straight up. And as soon as I hit it, I didn't have a helmet. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I never really wore a helmet. I thought they were kind of stupid, and I wasn't smart in that regard. And so I didn't think I was ever going to crash, basically. So going back, I hit this jump, and as soon as I hit it, I knew I was done. I was like, oh, I'm dead, you know. So I flew up into the air. I came down on my front tire. The next thing to hit rapidly was my handlebars on the top of my head, and then my head scraped and I hit my neck. So I kind of came around like this, and then my back plopped onto the ground. And I was out. My consciousness was out. The next thing I remember, it was kind of, I was disassociated from my body. It was actually floating up above the trees, the redwood forest. And the redwoods have this long trunk, and then at the top there are these beautiful crowns of needles there. So I was floating above there, but it wasn't like my body was floating like an astral type projection. It was my consciousness. I was aware of myself. I couldn't even, I described it as kind of like a ball of light, but it wasn't really even a ball of light. It was almost just like my eyes could see everything, and I could feel this energy around me. But I knew it was me, and it felt very familiar to me. It felt, more familiar and better than I did in the body that I was experiencing all this depression. And I just remember this total peace I was feeling. There were no thoughts about any of the things I had been experiencing, complete peace, silence. And I looked around and I could just see incredible detail, the incredible colors and the detail of the redwood needles on the trees, and the sky. And then I could begin to, it was almost like I could feel the presence of the trees, and that they were there and they were supporting me and they knew that I was there. And
What a strange feeling, getting used to our new eyes.
yeah, it is a very strange feeling. It was very surreal. So this was 25 years ago, but it's still very vivid. And I could actually hear the ocean. The ocean wasn't that far away, maybe 5 or 10 miles away. I could hear birds calling out far away. I could feel the wind moving through me. It was an incredible experience.
And so you had new hearing also, because normally you wouldn't have heard the ocean that far away.
No way. You wouldn't hear an ocean from 10 miles away. So that became, and then I remember looking down at my body, and it was a little confusing at first, but then I realized, oh, that's my body. And I was all kind of curled up on the ground, and I knew I was dead. And I took a moment to kind of experience what I was experiencing. It's almost like I didn't want to look back down at my body. This part of me wanted to keep experiencing it. But at that moment, a question came up. It wasn't like a thought, it was like a knowing question. Do you want to go further, or do you want to go back? And my instant reaction was, I don't want to die. And as soon as I said that, I was back in my body, actually saying the word die, like, I don't want to die. It woke me up. And I remember my eyes opening. I remember that I was trying to breathe. It was because my breath had been, knocked out of me. Maybe that was my spirit or my soul coming back in my body, and I was trying to breathe. And then the pain was just incredible. And I had wondered, oh, why did I say I wanted to come back? It was neurological. neuromuscular pain, stabbing, electrical. I can't even give all the descriptive words. It was full body pain. I could feel it from my toes up to my head. As this was happening at the same time, because my eyes were open, they were still a little blurry. I could see fairies coming down from the trees, and they were moving around me. They were dive bombing me. They were going back up. I heard little giggles.
What they look like?
They look like like in a way like Tinkerberry fairies. Tinkle. What is it?
Tinkerbell?
Anyway, yeah. It was like that. It was like what people actually, how they draw them and you see them on the internet, or it was very very similar. Little bodies with wings and light little garments on their bodies, and there were females and males, and different colored hair, and I'm feeling all this pain, but I'm seeing this and I'm thinking, wow, like, what's going on? And also what was happening was very interesting. I heard these tones, and I didn't know this at the time. I actually found this out a little bit later on, but I heard these tones. It was almost like this, it was like a Tibetan singing bowl, but it was these ringing sounds coming from the trees, which I had found, I found out later on. And it wasn't just in my ears, it was my full body. And I felt like the trees, what they were doing is they were healing me. They were communicating with each other and they were healing me. So I'm experiencing this awe and I'm having this amazing visual and auditory experience at the same time going through this pain. And I just remember my focus came back to my pain, and I took a few breaths and I was out again. So, excuse me, I'm just going to take a little drink of water here.
That's fine.
I'm not used to talking so much. So I lost consciousness. And the next thing I remembered, I was in the hospital. Didn't really know that when I opened my eyes, because I heard the doctor. He was leaning over me, kind of had this curly hair and these small spectacles, and it felt surreal. I felt like, oh, am I in another weird dream like space? And he was saying to me, he was looking at me, and he was saying, you're very lucky. You're very lucky. You didn't die. You're very lucky. You didn't break any bones. And I kept hearing this, and then I became more and more aware of him, and he was repeating this over and over again. And then he started to ask me questions, what's your name? Didn't know that. Where are you from? I didn't know that. Where are you right now? I didn't know that. He even asked me if I was a man or a woman, and I didn't know that either. And then he asked me what my phone number was, and I said I didn't know. And he said, well, do you know any numbers? And I just blurted out a number that I had in my memory. I must have, and it was a family friend, and they ended up coming and getting me. I would say it was, I think the hospital records show it was around 5 or 6 o'clock by the time I got out of the hospital. And I got to the hospital, it was, I think, around 2 o'clock. So I wasn't there very long, but that just shows me that back into in the forest, I must have been there, 4 hours, 3 hours at least.
Did someone come along that path and find you?
And that's a great question, because I asked that because I wanted to thank the person, and they said that they had absolutely no phone record or no record of anybody calling in or calling in the accident.
Wow.
And I still don't know to this day how I was found. I still don't know to this day how I got from there to the hospital. I know that there's no way that I could have biked my way, just
They didn't
being
say
out on the ground.
they didn't say if a squad brought you in.
No, they didn't say
Oh,
anything. That they didn't have any record of anything. Because
oh.
I actually called them. Yeah, Peggy. I called them like 2 months later, and I was trying to get more information, and I just couldn't. They couldn't. Normally, they have a 911 record on call that you can supposedly you can find the person so you can go thank them. So I wonder if it could have been something. In my mind, I'm thinking later on, well, the fairies picked up the phone, or so yeah. So
And
I was,
without
I
you
was,
having memory, is who knows?
yeah. Who knows? Yeah, yeah. So the next thing, I was picked up by our family friends. They were older, but they gave me um, they gave me a space in my own little room where I could rest, and I was sleeping on their couch. I was still very incredibly disoriented. I was on pain medications, and I was in a lot of pain. I didn't break anything, but I still got up and used the bathroom and ate, but it was very hard to move. And eventually my mom came down and picked me up from Washington and flew me back. So yeah, see, from here, I think for me, my main goal at that time was just getting out of this body pain. And I didn't like the medication I was taking, the painkillers. I saw a lot of neurologists that basically just gave me painkillers, and they didn't have an explanation. They took an MRI. I had an X-rays. I had a C7 slipped disc, which was causing limited mobility in my shoulders and my arms. My memory was slowly coming back after time. By the next day, I knew my name, but remembering everything that happened and details about the last 2 years in college, that took a while. I didn't.
All I can think of is be careful what you pray for.
Yeah, well, that's it. Be careful what you pray for, because I was asking for that over and over and over again, and I got it. And I didn't want to kill myself, but I still got what I thought I wanted. And, it's not really, it was a depressed state. It wasn't really who I was and who I really am, and was shown to me at that moment when I was above the trees. And I believe that part of me that's connected to God knew what was best for me, and said that it wasn't time. So
Isn't it strange how so guided these things are? Our experiences are, because you had a love for those trees. That was your safety place, and you got to experience the trees during your NDE. I think that is just so like divine intervention.
yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I had that connection, and it was like the support was still there. They're beings I didn't see. I didn't see angels, or I didn't meet old family members, but I had those trees that are my family, and they were supporting me. So yeah, that's great that you see that. Trying to think where to go from here. I really don't know. My healing process, basically, I didn't want to do anything traditional because I saw that it wasn't helping me. So I did seek out alternative therapies for my body and my own healing. And I found incredible people that were able to help me fairly quickly. Actually, within, I would say, 6 to 9 months, I was completely out of my neurological pain from going to a network chiropractor, and which is a non-intrusive, very gentle form of chiropractic that deals specifically with the nervous system, which was perfect for me because that's where I had my neurological damage. So, yeah, I mean, I was 20 when the accident happened, and a few months later, I had turned 21. It's like I had no desire to do things that other 21s did. I never drank or did anything. So it was about my own personal journey at that point, healing my body and figuring out, why I'm here, because I was given this, even though I asked to go, I was given another opportunity to come back and to be here. So it became
I'm sorry, even though you had less pain being back with your mom at home, was that a comfort to you? Maybe that's where you needed to be, I'm wondering, since you were so depressed.
It was a comfort to me. It was very interesting too, because as far as my parents are concerned, like I always knew that they loved me very much, but when you're a teenager growing up, you don't want to have anything to do with your parents. You just want to get away. And I ended up going 2 states away to go to college. When I was laying on the couch waiting for my mom to come pick me up, I had an experience. It was I felt my parents. I could feel their emotions from just laying there, and I could feel that my mom and my dad were very worried. They were very concerned, and then I could feel this deep sadness, specifically from my dad. It was like he didn't want to lose his son, and he wanted to, maybe possibly build a better connection with me, which ended up happening over the years, because I always felt closer to my mom. But yeah, when I went back up to Washington State, yeah, I did have that nurturing. I did have that comforting. I did have the support that I needed to heal, and just to figure out my life, basically, and what I wanted to do next and where I wanted to go. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. It just seems like, you were in this state. I mean, you weren't thinking about suicide or hurting yourself. You just weren't happy here. And this thing happened, and you ended up home and getting, even though you were in pain, and it was a bad thing, but it's like so amazing. The divine intervention knows what we need, and we were asking, so
Yeah, that's what I needed. I mean, I could have ultimately just dropped out of college and gone back home and received the nurturing I wanted to, but that's just not the space I was in. I felt like I needed that little push, or something to actually happen to show me how precious it is, being here, that life really is a gift. And like you said, be careful what you ask for.
it makes me think of, I had a tragedy in 2001, right before 9/11. Actually, right after 9/11. And I was just, that day, I was praying to God. We were in the mall Christmas shopping, but in my head, I just started saying this prayer. I was really scared about starting law school. And I was like, God, because there's some way I could get out of this. I was like too scared to start. We'd already moved the kids up there. My husband got a temporary job there. We're in Michigan. We're from Ohio. We're in the city. I'm used to the country. And I got cold feet, because it's $20,000 a semester. So if I fail, that's going to be a lot of money for us, especially back then, 20 years ago. And so I was like, and I just kind of said this prayer out of my desperation inside myself, like, is there any way I can get out of this and save face? That night, we had a knock on our door, and the next day, this stuff happened, and it was such a huge tragedy to our family. And it took like a long time, like 10 years later, for me to realize, because I could always see the good in something. Okay, this bad thing happened, but here's this good in it. This, I said, God, I will never see the good in this. Why this happened? And then I started remembering, I asked for it.
Yeah.
So I say, be careful
Right.
what you pray for.
Yeah, that's definitely a through line, I think, with a lot of life, because we don't realize all the time that we are creating with our words and with our connection, whether we feel like we have a connection to God or not, we are still being active and what we're creating and what God wants for us. So
And we
yeah,
forget
very
they're
interesting.
listening. They're
Yeah,
listening all the time. And
yeah.
it's like, do they really know when to take us literal? Or,
Right, right. Yeah.
But I mean, such divine knowledge, though, on the other side, because they know how to make these situations to get you where you need to be. We couldn't have thought of this. So, okay, this is the situation I need to make me now feel like this and now understand this. We can't do that.
Right. Or go a particular place or meet a particular person, whatever the situation is, have a particular experience that knows better than our small little ego mind might know. We have no way of knowing unless we start to see, our connection become stronger, I think, and we begin to listen to that.
Some of the guests come on and they say, you are God, I am God, we create this, we create, well, are you kidding me? That's not my experience. My experience is to seeing the divine intervention interacting in my life. Now that I'm older, I can see, but all those decades before, I couldn't put the pieces of the puzzle together. It's like, oh gosh, this happened,
Yeah.
this happened. Why? And then as you get older, like you can see how this was orchestrated for you. Just mind blowing,
Yeah,
the knowledge.
and it's something that's, it takes learning to that. Yeah, I mean, you can say that you are God and everything is one, but it's and everything is love, but love can be really tough. If it's like God says, oh, you want to know what divine love is, you're gonna have to learn how to shed the light on everything. I mean, that's a huge responsibility, right? So leave that up to God, not you.
And the guest was saying the other day is that he ended up wanting his video taken down, but so I did, but he kept trying to force me into agreeing, and I couldn't agree. He said God is in everything. I'm like, because I'm thinking, murder and all these horrible things, like God's not in that. That's not of God. We do things that are not of God sometimes. It has nothing to do with
Right,
God. Somebody comes bracing your house right now. That's not God that sent them there. That's somebody that's not in tune with God and going against God, is
right.
my thinking. So anyway,
Yeah, that makes sense.
I
Yeah.
just get off on my mind just goes and goes when you spark my interest like this. And it
Yeah,
just
no, that's
opens me up.
fine. It's a conversation. It's not just about me. So, but it can be, but it's your show is what I should
Oh,
say. It's your,
yeah,
no.
it's
Yeah.
fascinating. You're just
Yeah, it is.
fascinating me
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I,
because now you have some kind of gift, right?
yes. So, I don't have really a label for it. I know everybody's into labeling gifts and saying, uh, anyway, it doesn't matter. It's an intuitive gift basically, and so you could say that it's healing, but it's really source doing. Source can only be the one that does the healing, I believe. So we have people like the person that I saw for my chiropractic. He could move energy, he could see energy, he could work with the body, but he also knew that this was the chi, the flow of energy from source that moved through him. So for me, yeah, that's what I do. I work with people, and I just listen. I listen to them and I listen to where they go. And I would say that, the divine energy comes through and helps make the corrections that it needs to make. For if somebody, it doesn't matter what kind of situation. It could be physical, it could be mental, emotional, spiritual, however anybody wants to label that. It could be trauma, but the energy seems to just be directed to maybe a certain part of the body or a certain part of their awareness, and it just helps to make clearings and corrections and balances. That's the best way I can really describe it. It's something that I had actually kind of began to develop about 3 years after my accident. And then I kind of began to push it away a little bit because I was still dealing with a lot of issues. And actually, this accident brought up issues and healing that took many years. So when people talk about having like a quick awakening, mine was as slow as a snail, you know. And so I began to work with just families and friends and with this gift. And I never really wanted to be totally public with it. I learned body work. I did body work for many years. I went to massage school and took a program for over 1,000 hours. And then I took continuing education. I had my own practice for many, many years. I began to notice that people were actually having results with their issues, doing body work. And then I began to kind of incorporate this energy work, this remote, distant energy work with, as I moved away from, well, there's so much that happened in 25 years, but as I moved away from body work, I began to focus more on this distant healing work. I guess that's what you could call it. It's like distance healing, but I don't like to give labels to it.
So do you do that like this where you can see them, or is this on the phone?
Yeah, I could do it on the phone. I can do it on, WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. Yeah, just like this, just like we're talking right now, basically.
So like they would say, heal me, and you would say, okay, I see this in you needs, or how's that work?
Well, I would just be like, I would figure out why they're coming to see me first of all, and try to get a little bit of background and ask some questions. And it's really about asking questions with the people and listening. And I tend to hear kind of more of what's going on than the surface, so I can kind of get a sense. But as they're talking to me, I feel this energy coming through. So it's almost like as soon as the conversation begins, I feel this energy coming through me, and the energy begins to make the changes as the person talks. I might say something like, oh, okay, so I'm noticing a spot, in your low back, or they'll tell me I have pain in my low back, and I'll ask them, tell me about that more. And as they're telling me, the energy comes through and I might not know exactly what it would be, but the divine knows better than I would. So I kind of step out of the way in this process and let God kind of show me what needs to be done. And then, that low back pain could be something that happened when they were 6 and they fell off a bike, or their father was yelling and screaming at them and it got lodged in the lower lumbar vertebrae or something like that, or in the DNA. So I would say that's part of my gift, but it's also helping people just to release resistance to life. And that's what, in India, they would call karma, would be resistance to life. So if we can find those areas where people are resisting life, we can help them begin to move back into the flow of life.
How do you think it works? Do you think that it was something during your near-death experience that changed you, that made you an empath, that you can pick up on that? And do you feel like that light comes in you and you send that to them? I mean, what's your theory?
I guess there's two things there. I think with my near-death experience, more of who I really am on a higher level, maybe not all of that part of me, but a lot of that part of me came back during my near-death experience. And it just began to unfold within me and show me what I needed to work on. So my process with healing has always been to work on myself, first. And I mean, if people come, people come. If they don't, they don't. That's fine. But if I can do my own inner work, then whether that's healing my body or my mental emotional system or whatever is happening within, then I kind of know, that kind of gives me a baseline of how to be able to work with people. Like, oh, I did this specific thing, I moved the energy in a certain way within myself. I wonder if it would work with somebody else, but it wouldn't. But yeah, like it's more like when I'm working with people, I'm in a very silent place and I'm listening from my heart, which is the most important thing to do. And then the energy just kind of comes through and and goes where it needs to go to help that person. Is that your question?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because when you said who I am on a higher level, and I think we get to know that person on the other side during a near-death experience. We experience ourselves out of our body. We are just our spirit. And that is who we are on a higher level than we were before. And when we come back, we aren't just that all the time. It seems to me like we can access that by paying attention to, oh, I'm being a butt. I didn't have words for it, but that works pretty well. Who I am on a higher level, like our best self. Because we know what that felt like when we were in our NDE and out of our body, when we were in that, I say, land of knowing, or when we were in heaven, or out of body, whatever we were in that land. And in that land, we are our soul, like our soul self, that who we are at a higher level. And I know personally, and I imagine it's the same for everybody, we just don't put words to it. Like, I'm being a butt right now. I need to be back to who I am on a higher level. We don't say that. And I kind of mentioned a while ago in the terms of, if somebody broke in my house right now, that's not of God. That's somebody that's went away from God, And so if they would try to be, that person before breaking in houses would try to be who they are at a higher level and not allow themselves to be at this low level human being state where they're only fixed on getting their needs met and they don't care how, because when we are at our soul or higher level, whatever you want to call it, it is a space where only goodness flows through, and it is healing for ourselves and for others. Because I feel that when the first time I gave a talk to a group about my NDE, I was suddenly levitating as I told about my drowning, hovering above the pond. Suddenly I was back there hovering above the pond. So I felt who I was at the higher level, like you're putting words to it. And then I told about my NDE at 25 and when I was in heaven and I was back feeling I was in the bright white light. And so I could feel myself at that higher level. And I was like levitating the rest of the day. I had to go other things. I had to go Walmart, get my granddaughter a bike for her birthday. I had to go to this birthday party, but I am levitating. I am still at that level all day. And I was hooked on that feeling. And that's why I do the podcast. Because like right now I'm getting there again, because we're talking about it and I get back in that level. Now I won't stay there, I'll get mad later, something will irritate me, and I'll come back down. But I love being in that level. And I have also found personally when I'm at that level and around people, and if I can get at that level, I will be like knowing, like I may say, that's going to need wound care. And like, how could you know that? Or don't go that way because something, or suddenly just know I have this intelligence that I normally don't have. And it's just a matter of getting into that level. And it's training yourself. Like, do you have to prepare before you do one of these to get out of your butt wipe self? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
and
do
get
know what
into
you
that
mean.
place.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience. What you're explaining for your, your near-death experience. Yeah, that's really a great way to put it. So, getting out of the small part of me, the frustrated part of me. I think that's always going to be kind of there for all of us. You know, I mean, it's very human to be human, to have things that we have to deal with. But yeah, I before I work on people, absolutely. I mean, I get into a quiet space and I connect with that part of me, that higher part, that soul part of me, because that part of me knows best, and I don't want to interfere with any of the or bring my opinion to or interfere with the experience that the other person is having. That would be what I would consider like a violation or an imposition, to impose what my beliefs are, or what my how I think that they should be, you know. So when people come to me, generally speaking, they feel very safe and very open, because I do spend time to get to that place where I can assist people, or that part of me, that soul part of me, that God part of me can come through and help. So it really isn't about me at the end of the day. You know, I'm just there for support and for listening and helping people.
I have noticed recently, I just didn't put it together. When I'm in a store and I'm at my higher level, I thought, why is people stopping looking at me? And I just realized, it just clicked. It's when I'm in a higher level. People will just stop and just look right at me. They'll smile, or they'll just stop and look right in my eyes. And I'm thinking, why do people keep looking at me? But if I'm like in a, you know, regular mood, you know, I don't even notice anybody around me, but it just seems like I'll stop and like, they see something, or like they're like, huh. I'm like, okay, I know my podcast isn't popular. You know, everybody in the world doesn't see me on podcast.
Right.
So
But
why?
it's true. It does affect. Yeah. I mean, yeah, when you are what you explained in that higher level, you do have a profound effect on the world. And but at the same time, you could be passing somebody, and they could be having a profound effect on you, and you don't know it, or you do notice it. I mean, it's just incredible. You know, we have there's so many people out there. I believe, you know, there's people in the public, but there's so many people that aren't in the public, that, you know, they might be washing the toilets, or they might be, you know, struggling in their earthly self, but they have an incredible connection with God, you know. And they could be, but yeah, to go back to what you're saying, yeah, absolutely. I mean, being in that space,
Yeah, I
you
mean, they'll
don't
just
have,
start talking to me, or say something, or just a little chit chat. And I'm
yeah,
like, this is,
yeah,
and I'm in that space, I'm in that zone, and it's just like I pick up on everything, and I'm happy about everything, and accepting. But if I'm not in that mood, it's not non-existent.
yeah,
Strange.
yeah. It's like the vision kind of narrows when you're not in that space. It can, and when you're in that space, it expands. It's like the idea of being expanded or contracted. But yeah, because that part of you is all loving and all knowing, like you said, a knowingness, right?
Yeah.
And people are really desiring that right now, or they feel like they really need that. I mean, there's so many people that are lost. There's having a very difficult time in the world, but if we can stay in that space, just doing what you're doing, going out, and, you know, wherever you are, you're having a profound effect on them. I mean, profound. And I believe so. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah. I just hope by us talking about it, I mean, I'm not trying to make myself special or anything, because I think we're all that way. We just don't have
Mm,
words to it, and we don't talk about it, because I'm just now starting to realize more and more. But that how much prayer can change. And like you say, be careful what you pray for, because somebody's always listening.
yeah.
And I've heard so many times that on guests, like a few days before their NDE, or a few days before their profound spiritual experience, something happened where they were calling out to God and asking God
Yes.
something. And then it was a few days later when you started your story and told me that, I thought, isn't that something? I'm starting to connect the dots of this is like you say, be careful what you pray for, because they are listening. It may not happen right that moment, but somebody's getting together and saying, what can we do to create this for this person? And it,
Right.
it might be a bike wreck, or, what happened to me in my crisis right for law school that I end up not going, or any, a cancer scare, or, who knows, that will,
Yes.
because we have no, that's too much for us. Our brains cannot decide, our parents can, well, let's send him to camp and that will straighten him out, or let's send him to Sunday school. Maybe it won't work. But in that land of knowing, these guides, these angels, the people in communication with God and Jesus, who knows how it all works. But when you know it's there out of
Yes.
experience, then you can go forward in your life and almost create a different life. Well, you can create a different life for yourself and everybody
Yeah.
around you.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, absolutely. And we don't have to go through NDEs, like we can just pray, every day, like you said, or whenever we feel like we need to about something. We don't have to have a near-death experience to have experiences that bring us closer to the divine. We can do that, just in our everyday world without having to, yeah.
And I think it's, trying to, like you said, what'd you say? Who I am, I wrote it down. Who I am on a higher level.
Yeah.
If you start noticing who you are when you're at that higher level and try to do more of that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's a good starting point, I think, for people. Absolutely. That, and I know a lot of people need to see evidence, but it's like, channels like you have amazing, all of your guests have gone through all very different experiences. Some of them have never believed in God, never, and then they had to have that experience. But yeah, when you can start from that place of knowing that there is a part of you that has a greater connection with the divine, or a higher part of you that knows, like that knowing you were talking about, that would be a good place to start, I think, and then go from there.
Just like an example would be, this morning I'm thinking about how to handle someone that is abusing someone else. And I can come at it from, an angle of anger and, retaliation, wanting them punished. Or I could come at the higher level is, let's get them help. Let's get them the help they need. And let's be loving and honest with them about that. I'm trying to get them help. And it's not behind their back or to hurt them. It is a different approach of love instead of, I guess you would say, hate. And I always say, we always have two ways to be. We can be loving or we can be hateful. And I suppose we could be somewhere in between, but it really gears to one side or the other. And I think it's a conscious decision all the time and how we relate to ourselves and everyone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then when you decide, you make that choice to come from love, and you actually have more ideas about how to solve the situation. When you come from a hateful place or a resentful place, you're not going to have those ideas or that knowing of what to do next. But that love, or that higher part of you, can actually guide you and show you options. It's like the higher mind, or the higher intelligence of knowing what's best for that other person, best for you. But I agree completely. When you come from a place of love, you have a situation that you have to deal with right now. If you come from that place, you're going to be much more clear about how to move forward from that place, and it's going to really open your heart as well. So
Yeah. And you're going to get more cooperation.
yeah.
Someone knows that you're sincerely trying to help, and you sincerely care and love them, versus I'm going to get your butt thrown in jail.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you might be surprised what other support you get from whatever other directions. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a really great way to start from.
This has been really interesting. You really gave me a lot to think about. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't believe so. I mean, I'm very grateful for you and creating this space, and having, having a place for people like me that are incredibly sensitive and not really even out in the world that much, to be able to express their experiences. And I think it's an absolutely wonderful thing that you're doing. And
Do you have a website that people can contact you for your service?
I do. Yeah. So it's called Radical Heartworks. It's radical like cool, and then heart works. So
Okay.
.com.
I'll put that in the description.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.